Right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to introduce you with our presenter today, expert trainer Gary Fullis. He is a former technical and sales professional in Schlumberger. His experience in sales management and marketing, worked in global sales training as sales training instructor, works in many countries in Middle East, Far East, and Asia, Australia, US, and Malaysia. Therefore, you can ask a lot of questions. And he's also served on international school board. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we should sit back, relax, and enjoy the session. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Gary to take the screen. Please welcome.
Okay, everybody. I hope I'm hearable and viewable, and we'll get underway. Thank you, Faiz, for your wonderful introduction. And I'm Gary Fullis, and our goal today is, what do you need to do to be a sales professional? Assuming that that's your goal or that's where you want to be, what do you do now? What do you need to learn? So we're looking at people, we're hopefully amongst you, I'm looking at who's attending. We've got a mixture of people from students through to people in a range of industries already in sales roles, and some people that may be new to sales, and that's an appropriate audience. So let me start by highlighting the words business-to-business sales. Business-to-business is about a business selling to a business. The opposite to that is business-to-consumer. Why business-to-business is an important topic is that usually we have larger customers, there's more processes involved, often there's bidding, there's contracts, and relationships are required because we're going to be around them for a longer time. So organizations dealing with sales to businesses usually need some processes, some structure, some training. And that's why we talk about learning to be sales professionals in the realm of business to business. So that's where we're starting. So sales training, sales development, and guidance on sales is everywhere. You're going to find it all over the place. And so we're going to touch on, to start with, just some of those places you'll find it: movies, jokes, internet, books, etc. So let's just have a look at some of these places. First glitch. There we go. Movies. 20 movies there. This is taken from a web search. So you can find this anywhere on the internet, lots of different choices. 20 movies in the last 40 years that relate to sales. Intriguing, amazing. A lot of them have other themes in them, but usually there's little snippets in these movies that you can learn from. And I'm just going to highlight 3 of them with some famous lines that have come out of them that start us on skills and things in sales that we should know about. So, always be closing. Taken from the movie Glengarry Glen Ross. The guy in the picture is a guy called Alec Baldwin. You may know of him. ABC, always be closing, is a famous line in sales. Anyone selling to a consumer will be always trying to close on the deal. It's a very, very important aspect. But in business to business, closing means moving to the next action. So we want you to understand that that is a skill that you need to master. I highlight that you can see these things from movies. Let's look at another one. Famous movie. It's got Tom Cruise in it this time, Jerry Maguire. And in the movie, the famous line is, "Show me the money." It sounds very similar to closing a deal, show me your money. But in fact, in terms of sales, especially business to business, we call it qualification. So qualification is making sure that a person can actually pay, that when somebody's trying to buy from you, they have the ability to pay, they actually have the intent to buy, they have a reason for buying. You're qualifying that sale. Very important skill you need to acquire. It's coming out of movies. Let's try a third one. Cadillac Man. Who's this guy? Robin Williams. He's no longer with us, but very, very good, great comedian. Used to love the guy. But the highlight here is trust. Normally, car salesmen are not the most trusting of people. You see them selling cars that probably shouldn't be on the road in comic style, But the point here for me in business to business sales is trust is absolutely paramount. You are going to be around the customer. They need to trust you. So we have a lot of things that we need to practice and learn in building trust with customers. So that's part of business to business dealings. Moving on. I'd like you to see some of these movies if you get a chance, but I'm going to warn you about some things. Some of these movies have some pretty strong language. And so be cautious about, if you're offended by some language, be cautious about which ones you pick. Some do have a lot of poor language. You'll notice there's one infamous one there, The Wolf of Wall Street, which in Malaysia, I think a lot of money went to sponsoring that movie. Anyway, let's move on and see some other places where things about sales comes up. Cartoons and memes, they're all over the place. People making jokes essentially at salespeople's expense. Snake oil salespeople, that was people delivering elixirs, magical elixirs that solved all problems. Again, this was back in the Western movie type era, and they'd be selling these things that do nothing. Even today, you get people selling all sorts of drugs and things that are really questionable about what they actually deliver, whether they perform. So here it comes down to trust. These guys usually go to one town, move on to the next town. But in business to business, we're going to be around those guys for ages and ages, these customers that we sell to. So we need to be trusted. It's a rehash of the Cadillac man selling cars. But again, trust, I'm going to emphasize it even one more time. So here we've got a used car salesperson, again, Cadillac man in the movies, selling cars. You need to be trusted. So these two images emphasize the need to build trust, and the relationship is so important. Another area where a salesperson may be working is trying to predict what's going to happen in the future. Where is that future business coming to? Now, going to a mystic is not really the ideal answer. There are a whole bunch of processes in sales where we need to sit down and analyze what's coming next, how we're going to achieve certain goals, what work is coming up, and how we're going to predict it. So a lot of effort is put into forecasting. Finally, Mr. Carey here, he is trying to call a contact at somebody's office, and the reception asks if they're expecting your call. A lot of people in sales have to call people at random that they've never called before. That's called cold calling. That's an art. It's a challenge. It's very hard to get in to see or talk with people if you've not broken the ice. So there's a whole bunch of skills or preparation you need to do before you actually start cold calling people to give you access, gaining access to customers. Again, a set of skills and things you need to master. So many, many things that make you a sales professional. So there's clearly a set of skills, knowledge, and processes that you need to be mastering, given these clues from the cartoons and the movies that we've just been talking about. So let's look at books. Whoa, look at that. And this is just a snapshot. There are so many books out there, and look at the topics: Getting to Yes, Powerful, Lost and Founder, Eat Their Lunch. So many things in the domain. Where do you start if you're trying to learn about sales? It's a minefield. Well, I hope by the end of today that we're able to give you some guidance on things that will help you and focus what you need to be doing. So there's no shortage of sales material for you to go and make your effort. So what we really, really need to do, what's missing, is to understand the skills, knowledge, processes, and activities you need to be doing or that you need to be focused on. So that's what we're going to be dealing with today. But before we move on, I'm just going to make sure that we've covered who I am. And I'm going to do a little bit of what we have to do. Some of the sales skills is presentation skills. And you've got to do things like understand how to present to people and how to communicate. Webinars are not always the way we've done them. So it's a new realm to be doing webinars because of the COVID environment. But let me highlight, this is called a number play. and it's meant to intrigue people and sort of get their minds working. Different people think in different ways. In this case, I'm highlighting 36 years that I've been in the oil and gas industry, working with a company called Schlumberger. Of those 30 years, 20 years were in sales and marketing. And probably more relevant for what we're doing right now is I spent 6 years working in global sales training team within Schlumberger, selling or teaching sales classes all over the world. So I've been South America, Europe, and Russia, and Kazakhstan, and just if I could list all the places, it would, it's rather intriguing. But what I wanted to highlight here is a differentiator. When I do normal classes, I have everyone in the class identify what makes them different from the next guy. The reason is differentiation is an important skill for people in sales training, in sales. So if you're going to be a sales professional, you need to be able to differentiate yourself and your business from other people's businesses. So in this example, as an example, I'd highlight what I'm pleased about is my years in a customer's office. I spent 13 years in a customer's office, actually sitting in their office. I was a company selling to that company, but I sat in their office because the relationship was strong and we need to be working with them. It's several different customers over those 13 years, but always in their office with building great relationships. But from that, you can see there's many things that I learned. And in the end, I'm advocating a whole bunch of things that we should be doing. So you can see that list there that is communications, relation skills, basically understanding the customer and their priorities, very, very important. But the more you understand them, the more you're in their office, the more important it is. I also spent 5 years on an international school board, and in that role, I was able to, I was chairing a committee looking for and designing, preparing for the construction of a new school campus. It's actually a school here in Kuala Lumpur called International School of Kuala Lumpur. So it was a $100 million project to build this school. It's actually on its 3rd year, I believe now, of operation. And it's an impressive school. But my role there as chair of the committee was to oversee it as if I was a typical customer. So if you're a business selling to a business, I've had the role of the business that's doing the selling. And in these cases, the role of being the buyer. And people that have done both sides really are better at communicating what's going on. It's important to have seen both sides to see the challenges of each. Then you can come together and work together more. So if you are a salesperson, spend a lot of time understanding what's going on the other side of the fence. Very, very important. Anyway, that's what I want to highlight there. And it also gives a bit of my background. So let's move forward and see what we're going to cover today. Fire's already covered a little bit, but I'm going to go on a specific pathway. So what we'll cover is what is sales. The definition is sometimes misconstrued, so I just want to make sure we're on the same path. What is a sales professional that comes out of that? What are the skills and knowledge required? And I'd actually say skills, knowledge, processes, and activities, but that didn't fit on the slide, so skills and knowledge is sufficient. Acquiring skills and knowledge on a path to competency. So how will we acquire those skills and knowledge that we talk about, and processes and activities on a path to competency? And competency is being able to use them, actually use. That's obviously going to entail practice and all sorts of things. I have a particular set of challenges that I see when I'm training people, actually, and when I was working with people in the sales force. Sales professionals tend not to always do the correct things. They miss a lot of things. And with this discussion on challenges, I hope to focus you on things that you should be doing. What comes next? Okay, I've got a little summary of what comes next, and that will end our day. So really, I'm focused on giving you a list of skills, knowledge, activities that you should focus on and do your search and try to work out where you're going forward, and some challenges that to keep in the back of your mind. And if I can give you those things and the way or where you should be going to find solutions, that's what I intend to achieve today. So let's move forward, and we'll define what sales is. So I've picked this up from the internet. It's an internet explanation, and I like this definition. You can see the website listed there, the Wikipedia site. So what is sales? Sales are the activities involved in selling products or services in return for money or other compensation. It is an act of completion of a commercial activity. A salesman is someone who sells products or services, thus generating sales. My emphasis on the things that are bolded. So it's activities involved in selling products or services in return for compensation, some form of compensation. Whether it's money or other forms, it's some form of recognition or reward. Someone that sells products or services. Major point there. Again, generating some form of reward. That's what sales is all about. So understanding that we're in business to business, let's talk about what are sales in business. So there was a separate definition on the web and the HubSpot in this domain. So the term sales encompasses all activities, is what a sales professional is going to be doing, involved in selling products and or services to a consumer or business. In our case, business to business is going to be to a business. But sales means so much more for businesses. Companies set up entire sales organizations comprised of employees and different people that are dedicated to selling their products and services. So a lot similar, well, very, very similar in nature, but the point is we're doing all sorts of activities. We're focused on selling products and services to a business. We're expecting to get some form of reward. And in the case of a business selling to a business, you need some structures in there. There'll be some processes, there'll be maybe a team of people, maybe some oversight. And so that sales organization needs to be professional. And that's where the word professional sales comes from. So hopefully this gives a guidance. Now, I'm going to touch on a topic that I find often confuses people, but it will also highlight what salespeople do a lot. So this is going to be on marketing versus sales. Marketing brings together a whole bunch of different things. But it's a high-level skill. It's a high-level task. It's normally done at corporate level or senior management level. In a small organization, it will involve probably everyone. But in a big organization, it's going to happen at a centralized location somewhere. So a company has a mission, vision, and goals. And with that, anyone doing marketing would need to do an analysis of what your capability is, given that you're supposed to meet this mission, vision, and goals. What are my skills? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? So you look at them internally and say, this is the areas that I can do stuff, and this is the area I can't. You also need to look outside of your domain at the world around you. What is your customer base? Who would you be selling? Who is the competitors that you'd be competing against with the products and things you've got? What are the government regulations and things required to be dealt with? What's the location? Are you in the ocean? Are you in the air? Are you in the sea? On the land? Are you in mountainous regions? Where are you? Or in a city? What is the environment you're selling in? What is the catastrophic things that could happen? Rain, flood, etc. Just understand the complete complexity of things beyond your control and work out how you would bring your skill set into there. So SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and that's what that analysis is all about. Strategy is working out how you approach the market, where you fit into that marketplace that you've just defined in the analysis, fitting into that marketplace. And then you come up with a solution for your product or what sort of product you're going to have into that place. And that would be called the marketing mix. Typically, we use 4 Ps, which is product, the product you're going to have, the place you're going to sell it, the promotion, how you're going to sell it, and the pricing. So there's 7 Ps also. You can search that on the internet. From that stage, look on the right, the same steps are listed in a flowchart there. The last step is the implementation step, implementation and control. That involves communication, marketing communications. That may involve salespeople. The next step, sales is focused on solving customer needs. And the big emphasis here is going to be everything here in the sales area is going to involve the local market where you're at and solving customer challenges and being around the customer. A lot of it is the customer. So sales is focused on solving customer needs. It's establishing and maintaining customer relationships, implementing strategies suited to a local market, and optimizing market share and profitability in that local location. Now, if you look on the right side, you'll see that there's a 5-step process that essentially does the same thing, which is building a relationship with the customer, understanding their needs, addressing them, closing the deals, establishing operations, if you like, and then looping back again. So the idea is that there's a whole bunch of steps that you can do, but it's maintaining it and going on and on and on. So it's about that relationship. So I'm going to simplify this because sometimes this can be confusing. So let's simplify it. The simple way I like to see the two things in terms of how salespeople view sales versus marketing is where you make a presentation to a large group. You talk about your products and things to large groups. And it'll be all the features and all the things your product or services do and everything that it may achieve. It's typically one-to-many or to a crowd, multiple customers hearing your spiel, but it's not targeted to any particular person. Sales is about personalizing it. It's about a personal solution, making it about that particular person. Only the relevant stuff that your product has is talked about. So it's one-on-one, it's to small groups and individual customers. What I talk about to customer number 1 may be completely different to customer 2, although it's the same product. I'm solving problems for customer 1 that he has. Over here, I'm solving problems for customer number 2 that she has. So they're different. They're not the same. So very, very important to understand those. But the whole focus here is about being around the customer. So sales is very customer-centric. And that's the important thing about sales. So, excuse me. So from here, we can move on and talk about what is a sales professional? Because given these things, okay, we can pretty much guess what a sales professional is going to have to do. So let's see another internet solution. It's so easy these days to pick up explanations for everything from the internet. So I actually love doing that. Somebody asked me a question, book, you go search for it, there's your explanation. So first it's talking about professional sales is essentially the process of running a business within a business. Well, okay, great, magic. Sales professionals focus on building trusting relationships with business clients in geographical territory, selling their company's products and services, and growing sales revenue to achieve territory, sorry, I'm missing a word, I've got something covering it, territory business objectives. Okay, very good. I like that definition. I've just got one little variation I've made, but I'm going to elaborate that and make that sales professional thing a little bit bigger. So I'm going to reword it. So a sales professional in business to business is the individual that has a knowledge and understanding and is trusted by the customer. That's an important feature, very important. Operates in a known local market, you know where you're operating, understands their products and services to solve local customer problems while achieving goals, which could include more than just growing sales revenue, could include goals like market share, revenue, profit, cash flow, and there's more, depends what your objectives are, through selling products and services to a customer for a return. Now that's my definition. It's pretty much this one, but with a few little nuances in there. So that is a good, wholesome understanding. So I'm happy with that definition. So as long as we all get that, understand what this is as a sales professional, we're on the same page. So let's move forward and now talk about, if you are a sales professional, what could you be doing? What are the likely tasks or things that you may be operating on or maybe tasked to do? There are many different jobs where the skills of a sales professional could apply. And so let's just talk about the things you could be doing. So there are different things, and so the skills, knowledge, processes, and activities that you might be doing may be different depending on your focus. But let's talk about that. Whoops, sorry, too fast. What may consume a sales professional? Good question, good question. So there's a whole bunch of things. All of these things could be involving you. You might be doing one of them. You might be doing multiple. Might be doing none of them, might be doing something I haven't thought of. But in general, these are the sort of things that you could be doing. And so your skills may need to match or focus on these things that are part of your domain. So if you're doing online sales, there may be a whole bunch of things about relationship that you don't need to understand, that may not be so important. So let's just go through these individually. Inside sales. That's when you have a business relationship with somebody already, you have a contract, have an agreement, and you're selling to that person. So when I was assigned to a particular customer and I was in their office, I was doing inside sales because I was working within and coming up with solutions within that organization. Outside sales is when you go and have to visit customers and go around sort of seeing individual businesses, trying to build those relationships, often from the start. Sometimes somebody else is supplying them. Sometimes you're supplying them, but you're just not in a significant relationship with them. So outside sales requires the salespeople to go. In Houston, when I was working in Houston, we had people that were doing inside sales, and then we had other people that were having to do what they called A to Z, so A to Z. They'd be given letters of the alphabet, and all those companies with those A, B, C, D, E, F would be assigned to one person. And over a period of months, he'd have to go through the whole list of hundreds of companies, a lot of companies, and visit with them and try to see if there's some opportunities for him to sell work or products. Sales support functions. There are many, many people that work in the back office. Now, there's two things about them. Number one is you as a sales professional may need to help people from the back office that are supporting your customer, and the people that are in the back office supporting your customer may need some professional sales skills. So you could be a sales professional being in the back office, or you could be a sales professional needing to help others that are doing back office support. Now, back office support can include things like people that do invoices, reports, accounts receivable, service quality follow-up, contracts, the list goes on. There's a whole bunch of things required in typical agreements between companies which involve other people doing things. So safety was service quality, sorry. Safety is another one where we used to have a lot of people coming in. So next one, client services. Client services is, I noticed in our audience, we have somebody that is often providing consulting services. Consulting services can often be provided by one business to another and often help lead to other sales. That would be giving a service to a client, but as a salesperson, helping, facilitating, that's important, but also the people giving that service need to be very savvy or aware of what they're doing in terms of the impact on relationships and future sales. So again, those people that are consulting may need to be somewhat sales professional or sales savvy, and any other salespeople dealing with that particular customer may need to support and help that person giving those professional services. Lead generation, there's often people dedicated to spotting leads and coming up with things. Sometimes you have a presentation, a marketing presentation, where you're doing a presentation to many, many people about a product, and you'll have a little, like a fishbowl, where people put their business cards in it. That gives you lots of names of people that have shown an interest in a particular product. That would be generating perhaps some leads. There's other people that have websites that people make inquiries to. That generates leads. So there's a lot of processes about it, but there's often people dedicated to that. I also note there's several people in our audience today that are business development assigned, or at least that's in their title. Business development are people that are out to generate new business. So typically, if I had a new product, I would assign a business development manager to develop a business for that new product. As long as it's big enough, he'd go around developing customers and traveling around to different places to show and highlight the things about that particular product. If you're a small entity, you may have a business development manager to add customers to your operation. Maybe you're a small player in a particular area and you want to advance your presence. That would be a business development manager's role. Account management. Account management is focused on existing clients or existing accounts. It's understanding your customers, understanding the people, understanding your organization, understanding what their drivers are, understanding their future projects, where they're going. Very, very important part of business, and I've spent a lot of time in that area. You need to understand your customers, and that's an important aspect of it. Consultative selling. Consultative selling is about building a relationship with your customers, which is important in business to business, and actually going in there and coming to solutions, mutual solutions, where you both gain out of the deal. You improve the deal, improve the relationship, and maybe the customer can do something for you to give something to them. It's a win-win situation. And in business to business, it's something we should be doing. There are still environments where there is conflict and there is somebody who wants to win-lose. We tend to prefer for business to business to try to be in a relationship of working together. And if the relationship is good, usually that happens quite logically. Business to business versus business to consumer. We're talking about business to business, which is big and long-term deals. Business to consumer is a different sort of business, usually smaller deals, and so we're not talking about that here. But there's a little bit of a conflict between people that do business to business and try at the same time to sell to the end user. That would be bypassing the business that you're selling to. If that situation arises, you could be seen as competing with the business, and it could do damage to your business-to-business relationship. So be careful with that one. Online sales is the latest trend, and in COVID-19 era, we're all doing purchasing things online. Well, in terms of our industry, it tends to be a thing that drives price down. So not always true. You can do marketing online, and that's a good deal, and you get to generate leads and then actually do some follow-up one-on-one. If you've got high-end products that are unique, you don't really want to be throwing your product on to be picked apart and price driven down. So you're probably not wanting the online market, but you can use the online for other areas. All very, very interesting. Anyway, that's a quick overview as a sales professional, what you might be doing. Let's, possibilities, if you like. So you probably want to work out what you will be doing and then tailor your skills, knowledge, processes, and activities to the things that you'll be focused on. So what skills and knowledge are required, which is the crux of why we are here today. So let's have a look at my attempt to find some skills and knowledge. Whoa! So on the right there, you'll see a list of about 9 different links I found, suggestions on what skills might be appropriate for sales. I took all the words, I had to edit them a little bit because sometimes it didn't make sense, put hyphens or whatever, and put them into a word map program. A word map program looks at frequency of words, and the things that happen more often are big, and the things that happen less often are small. So you can see the big things are clearly communication, active listening, technology aware, closing, the time management. There's a few things there in the middle. Well, I took the things that were the most frequent occurring, and in order, the top 9 in order, the most frequent was being communication, but we have 9 elements there. I'm not going to go through them in sequence, but you can read them there. But the point being, there are 6 that relate to customer communications or relation management skills. So one category of skill that I think you all need to master, very, very important. And because it's so frequently occurring in that list, I think it is an area that you need to focus on. So communications, listening, time management, closing, socially engaged, and storytelling all relate to fundamental customer communications and relationship management skills. They're very, very central. So good, we have a good indication of something that's key. I take that as one topic, but lumping several of these together. The second one, product knowledge, demonstrations, and technology, those three remaining things are all about technology, product knowledge, and understanding your product. So it's a skill that you need to have. You need to be very aware of the things you are selling, understand them fully, because customers hate people that come in and really don't know and always have to drag other people in. High end, it's okay to bring in an expert, but for the routine stuff you've got, you should be an expert in that particular topic. So I'm okay with this list. It highlights 2 areas. Again, it's just the communication aspects and it's the knowledge of product aspects. I'm going to lump into those broad categories, but it's missing a lot. So I'm going to fall back into what I used to do in my sales classes as the major skills that we used to work on. Again, this is part of my global sales training. When I was doing that, we used to have generic sales skills lists, things we should be working on, skills and activities and knowledge at a high level. And under those are a whole bunch of sub-skills. So I'm going to bring that up. So here is that list. So generic skills and knowledge required. A bunch of areas that I would say are the piece de resistance, the master list of things you should be looking at and picking which is applicable to you and then pursuing them. I'm sourcing these from, you see down on the bottom left, a book called B2B Professional Sales. This was my former boss. I used to work alongside him. He was my boss when I was doing sales training. He wrote that book. And it's an all-encompassing book. It's a very, very big book. And in fact, we used to almost call it a religious book because it was included so many things and contacts and points to other books. So it's a very, very good book. But I take from it this list, and marketing skills include some sales interaction. So it's very important to understand those, where your product came from. Selling business value. You've got to understand the value, because you sell products too high, too low, misunderstand what they're worth. It's a big problem. You sell things too high a price, you'll never get the work. Sell things too low a price, you're never making the money to cover the cost of your products. You must get that right. Account management is getting all the information on the customer's account and understanding the customer really well. Opportunity management, finding things that you've got to work on and building them into actually a purchase. So at the end of the day, you want to get the customer to commit to your solution. That process is managing an opportunity. Communications, there's a whole bunch of skills about building that trust, the relationship, and visiting with your customer just as a constant base. So trust is important, but understanding your customer is also absolutely important. Prospecting is the art of going out and looking for opportunities, going out and trying to uncover them. And there's skills in asking questions, in searching, and being in the right place to hear the right stuff. Sales calls. People don't always get how you make a sales call. They think going to a coffee shop, going to a restaurant is what sales calls are about. No, we expect you to plan a call. There's a purpose, there's a mission, there's things that you may be needing to present to the meeting. There's a particular person likes things in a certain way, understanding the methodology behind certain people and how they work. So planning the meeting, executing the meeting, appropriate skills for understanding and interpreting, and then following up afterwards, closing the meeting, following up, and then looking at how well you performed during the meeting. That's a process. You need to understand those processes. They are absolutely key. Many people handling customer rejections, being beaten up on by customers. People feel sometimes just beaten up. How do you handle these? It's important to understand how to deal with customers that disagree with you, that fight with you. Strategic sales planning. You need to be able to come up with a plan to pursue your opportunity or several different opportunities. Often these entail finding holes in your knowledge base. It's an art. There's a lot of things involved. There's a lot of overview and filling gaps that need to occur. It's a major exercise. Bidding, a lot of stuff goes into bidding. I'm not going to dwell on it, but customers that decide to bid have you submitting proposals, but you need to bring a whole bunch of data together. You need to conform with a whole lot of requirements that range from legal to technical to financial. So there's many, many things involved in bidding. Pricing for bids, going back to selling business value before, pricing for bids is a big challenge, and there's a whole bunch of strategic stuff around it. It's a major seminar. We're actually, between bidding and pricing for bids, we'd have a 1-week seminar on that alone. Negotiations, knowledge is key. Prior knowledge before you go into the meeting is absolutely key. Knowledge of the people in the meeting, knowledge of all sorts of aspects of the negotiation and the company that you're negotiating with, absolutely key. Pipeline management is planning for the future, the things that are coming your way, the potential work. If you have a year out, nothing expected, in a year's time, you may have no work. You expect to have in that pipe coming your way things listed. They won't all come to you. Sometimes they'll be taken by the competitors. Sometimes they'll go away. But you need to have a constant stream of things coming in, and managing that pipe is called pipeline management. Business acumen is understanding the nature of the business your customer is in. being aware of what challenges, what goals, what aspirations, where their projects fit in with their competitors, etc. So understanding the client's business. So there's a whole bunch of activities, skills, and things you need to know. And again, each of these things have sub-skills that you'd want to dwell on. But that list is what you want to have, that you want to go searching for, and trying to find the things that can fulfill that goal. So let me jump ahead. Again, that came from the B2B book by my friend Joe Amlin. So moving forward, we're going to be talking about where you go from here. So with those, take that last list and look for books that solve those problems associated with those topics. Good books, popular books, ones that are recommended in those topics. Surf the web. You can pick one of those topics and surf the web and try to find things that make sense. Attend a seminar or webinar on those topics. Obviously, we're going to have some related to these topics coming down the line. On the job instruction. Sometimes you have some experienced people working with you, or people that are have very high level of expertise. They may be able to mentor you as you're doing the job. Mentors and coaches, by the way, on the job instruction is a good thing. You need to practice, practice, practice. Practice is important. Repetition and oversight is important. On the job instruction works in that regard. Mentors or coaches. Mentor is somebody that actually has the experience and can try to convey their experience to you. A coach is somebody that comes and makes suggestions on what you can do. It's up to you in the case of a coach. In mentor, they're actually imparting their knowledge on you. So, but both of those are very, very good to help you along the way. Prior experience comes, but you need to have either a mentor, coach, or somebody doing oversight, a good manager who would be a mentor or coach, to bring that into line, because often you're missing certain elements, so you need to focus. On the right, I talk about competency level. People come in with limited competency. I say no competency, but actually with limited competency. So limited competency, it's a hard word to say. Limited competency is not going to get you very far in sales. You need to learn the basic things for what you're doing, the task at hand, and you need to practice, practice, practice. And repetition being so important, but you need the oversight, somebody providing feedback about what you did right and what you did wrong to improve on those things. Again, be process driven. If you don't know how to do something, get a process. If you know how to do it already, you don't necessarily need some of these processes. But I would say that processes help you get things right. And once you get them right, you don't have to dwell on the nuances of the process necessarily, unless it's a big corporation and they require you for standardization to follow those processes. But again, as you get more experience, you can add to your knowledge base, you can add to your experience, and slowly become from no competency to basic, advanced, and expert. And that's how we evaluate your skill set. It's important that the repetition and oversight are understood. You need to repeat and practice and practice and practice, otherwise you forget the skills. Oversight helps continually improve them, and that can be done with any of these things on the left-hand side. So let's move forward, and we're going to talk about challenges that I see in salespeople. So salespeople, I'm seeing, when I was a sales manager, sales and marketing manager, I had a sales team, and I'd see the holes in them. As a sales trainer, you'd see people that were missing the point often, and I want to highlight some of the key points that you need to know about. So, key points being, okay, it's my focus point, so Gary's top 5, and it was originally a top 4, it's expanded to top 5 with the word process, and I'm thinking of making it a top 6 here. Keep growing. Sad that I keep doing that. Early. People often leave things to the last minute, and in sales, it's too late. You've lost your competitive advantage if you leave it to the last minute. I'll elaborate. Customers. You need to understand your customer. You need to build a relationship and be trusted. Value. So many people don't understand what value is. You need to understand. Differentiation. I highlighted in my CV up front when we started. You need to be able to differentiate yourself from other people, otherwise it's the lowest price. Process. Processes for a business are very, very important, or for learning. They help you where you don't know how to do something. Ethics is something that's come up a lot lately, where there's been fines and challenges, and people, corporations are putting more and more rules into place. Bigger companies, it applies more than smaller companies, but I think it's a best practice to understand ethics in sales. So I'm going to highlight each of these with a little bit of an example. So early, you've got to be well in advance, days, weeks, years, whatever. But I use an example here where in Malaysia, I was bumping into some people walking up to Petronas Towers. And they were rushing, and I knew them from the office and said, hey, what are you guys doing? And they were off to make a presentation. What sort of presentation are you making? Well, we've got a tender we've got to deliver next week, and we're going up to make a presentation so that they understand what we're going to have in our tender submission. And okay, 1 week before, he's doing it a week before his submission. Okay, then a bit further down the road, there was a second guy doing the same thing, but for a different business. But they had the same tender due date, and they were pulling the same customer base, but they're from the same company. Not very, very good planning. Last minute, it's all wrong because they're not getting the message out to the people they need. It's already late. The tender's been written. They're obviously responding to it already. They can't influence anything. Way, way late. Same time I was going to a teacher class in Norway, in Stavanger. At the airport, there's your baggage thing comes out on one of those little conveyor belt type things. And behind it, there was this sales poster, one of those that revolve and go round and round and round. And on that, it was advertising something from our business. It was an approach to our business that was a little bit different from normal. I didn't understand this. So when I was teaching the class, I had people from the local office, and I asked them about it. And they said, oh, we have a tender in 9 months. It's not out yet. It hasn't been released. 9 months' time. And we're trying to make sure that they're considering this aspect of our business. So they were messaging a year in advance, way, way in advance. They were getting it, and they were looking at the opportunity and working out how they position themselves for it a year in advance. That's an example of being early, what to do, what not to do. So that's my point. Customer, know them, their business, and their drivers, business drivers. Absolutely important. I'm going to use an interesting example. I was a recruiter for a while. University of New South Wales. I went in and I made a presentation to a large group about the company, what we required, the skill sets they needed to be recruited, and how the recruiting meeting would go. Then I went and did the meetings, and would have people schedule, 15 minutes each or half an hour, whatever the time was. And people would come in. Well, I had this one guy come in, and he seemed a little vague, quite smart, but a little weird. Anyway, I asked him what he wanted to do in our company. And he said something was just totally wrong. It just didn't apply to our company. Then I asked him about, what did he like about our company? He didn't know our company. And I kept going on with this until he dug a hole so deep. I was quite rude. I blasted him, kicked him out, and said, don't come. And that was a really good thing, because then I had a whole lot of people delete their appointments because they realized I meant what I said in the previous presentation. He came in without understanding anything about my business. I didn't trust the guy. I would not recruit somebody that hadn't done their background. And so he was out. The same applies to your customers. You need to understand them to be trusted. And that's important as a professional salesperson. Okay, the next example, value. So many people misunderstand that. My favorite story here is, okay, you will need to understand what the customer sees in your product. It's not what you see. It's not what you think it is. It's not what you think the value is. It doesn't matter. It's what somebody in the customer says. If you go to the customer and say, hey, this brings this much value, well, then it's you saying that. And salespeople aren't always trusted, as you can see from the used car salesman or the snake oil salesman. You don't want to go in and be seen as being untrustworthy. But if you can quote somebody from the customer saying, this is the value that so-and-so saw, then you've got credibility. Now, in my example, I was working in Qatar, and they were building liquid LNG plants, making liquid out of gas. And so gas, they compress it, they clean it up and compress it. Now, these plants were billion-dollar things. They cost $1 to $3 billion to build a train, which was a whole bunch of gas coming in and compressing it down to become liquid, which they'd ship in ships around the world. The problem they had was when the gas came in, they didn't exactly know what it was, so they had to over-engineer the plant a little bit, which amounted to 3 to 5% increase in the price of the plant. So 3 to 5% of $1 to $3 billion is $30 to $150 million just because of uncertainty. well, we happened to have a product that was reducing that uncertainty, and it was unique. We were the only people that had it. No one else had it. And that had the potential to save them $30 to $150 million in their design. Our people didn't understand that value. They were quibbling over whether to increase the price by 10,000. The service was provided for about $1 million. So they were quibbling over whether to increase it to 1.1 million, where the benefit to the customer was $30 to $150 million. The customer told me afterwards that they were laughing at our proposal because we didn't recognize the value. Differentiation. Why your product versus someone else's? You must be able to differentiate your product. Otherwise, it's considered the same as the other person's. And so that differentiation, my example would be, well, when we started, I showed how I would differentiate myself in terms of my time in a customer's office. You should be able to differentiate yourself from your padres so that you get that promotion or you get a better salary. Stock trading. I know some people have online businesses. So stock trading. Originally, people came out with stock trading around $50 per trade. So you get a brokerage, online brokerage, and $50 to do a trade. Whoa, pretty steep. Well, that quickly reduced and people were buying them. Well, now they're down to zero. They're actually selling them for $0 per trade. Other brokers still maintain a price, but have a lot of research material available from their website. You can see where these two companies, one would advertise being price competitive, and one would advertise the material for making intelligent trades. So ability to differentiate each other, and they'd sell themselves in that way. You must know how to differentiate yourself. Process. I am a pilot. I have a pilot's license, little baby planes. It's called a PPL, private pilot's license. I'm not current, and I haven't done my most recent medical. So, but as a pilot, I have to go through a checklist. I get on the plane, I have a checklist, a physical list that I go through. Pull this, turn that, push that knob, check the fuel, check this, check all these different things. It's an absolute thing to make sure I don't have any problems. And it's all the way to the runway when I'm on the runway. When I'm coming into land, I have a checklist while I'm in the air to checklist pre-landing checklist. So I have all these little checks. But it's not just the pilot. It's the engineers. It's the mechanics. It's all the people around that process have checklists because the consequence is catastrophic. We need processes to make sure that we do things correctly, appropriately. Some people are beyond them and maybe they don't need them, but in terms of a big corporation, making sure that their people do things to a certain standard, it is essential. Finally, ethics. Ethics has come into business a lot more often, and I'd highlight it because of the damage it can do to you, your team, your company, and your customers. Don't forget your customers here. I was called into a customer's office. I was acting manager, and I was called for our operation, and I was called into the customer's office by their legal team, their internal audit, which are looking at their own people for inappropriate activity. So they called me in, and I went visited them, and they said, do you know about this? And they showed me an email that had been going on between a senior general manager at their oil company and one of our managers. And it clearly showed that our guy was arranging something for him, which he was using for his son's degree, which was considered an inappropriate activity. It ended up with a bunch of people fired. The senior general manager was terminated, as were some other people in his organization. The customer, that's our customer. We're destroying the relationship with our customer. Our people had a bunch of people fired as well, and it was damaged. But there's a whole bunch of examples of inappropriate behavior where people are damaged by government, by all sorts of different bodies. So be very, very careful in today's world. So I just wanted to highlight that as my new topic because it seems to be something that's becoming more of an issue. And we can see that in various governments around the world where there's some very questionable behavior going on. So let's wrap up the presentation with what you're going to do next. So, whoops, sorry. Here we are. So what next? You choose, you get to pick what you do next, but with that list of 14 skill sets, pick the ones that are appropriate for you. As far as a book, I've obviously got this B2B book that I love from my former boss, my friend, my mentor. It's a very good book. It's very comprehensive. It's very big, but it is a little expensive. I use a lot of his material for my sales content, and it covers all industries. It's a very, very good book and refers to lots of other sources of material. So I thoroughly recommend it. Surf the web. We often use selling power videos and things in our training material because they're out there, they're free, and they're very insightful into different aspects of training, but they've got some very good articles in there as well. For example, I'm giving a Zoom presentation now. There's an article on how to present over the internet. YouTube search. I did a B2B sales training search the other day, and I found all these articles and items, and one of them was intriguing. It was about selling cars. Some lady was selling cars in the UK, and she explained her business. Now, it's business to consumer and different to what I do, but it was intriguing. It was the terminology and what they're doing and the similarities and the differences were intriguing, and I was learning from it. So there's a lot of stuff out there. We're going to have a webinar or a seminar coming up, a digital classroom on some fundamental sales skills, and first one on the 27th of August, and we're planning also in November to have another one. But the one in November is open to suggestions, so if you've got any suggestions of what you'd like to see in the class, please throw it our way, because I've yet to exactly shape that one. The first one's going to be on the basic sales skills, mostly around communications and sales core skills. Other ways of learning stuff is on the job or prior experience, but you really need in the middle of this a mentor or a coach. Very, very important. Finally, COVID-19 is rapidly changing the way we do our business. It's the ability to be in front of your customer is gone. And so you're going to have to work out new patterns. I don't have the magic answer for everything associated with how to deal with COVID-19. So the sales processes and communications are having to change as a result, and you need to be very savvy in how to adapt. And I'd be interested in seeing how people all master that art. But doing online training is one of those changes, so interesting. Anyway, let's wrap this up and see what we've achieved. We've gone through what is sales, and we've given a point which contrasted sales from marketing. Sales is those personalized solutions with your customer one-on-one. Very, very important. What is the sales professional? Again, it's about those trusting relationships. Yeah, it's selling products and services for a compensation, but it's about growing the business also through whatever things, but per objective. So it's all of that and more. What skills and knowledge are required? I gave you a list of 14 generic examples of places to start with. Understanding what you may be required to do, pick the ones that are appropriate for you, and start doing searches for books, for things on the web, training courses that are appropriate, and that gives you an opportunity to gain the skills. Acquiring the skills and knowledge on your way to competency, read a book, surf the web, attend a seminar, on the job, mentor, coach experience. At the end of the day, you're going to have to understand what the things are, learn, practice, and then get some form of oversight, somebody to correct you along your way. Many ways of doing that, but they're the steps you need to be going through to gain your competency level. I gave you 6 items, officially 5, but with the 6th one added on. Early customer value, differentiation, process, and ethics as things that you need to focus on as areas where you can easily make mistakes. And then the question is, what comes next? And I gave you some wonderful examples, including our seminar that's coming up.
All right. Thank you so much for your time spending with us today. Follow us at Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter at PaySouth Malaysia. Stay safe, stay curious, and stay competent. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a good day. Bye-bye.